Guess one. So, oh.
You're listening to 9.5 FM KSJS San Jose.
305.
But yeah.
The views and opinions of the
And
following
then it's
program
what,
are not
671,
necessarily
I think
those
is
of
the last one.
KSJS, its
671,
staff,
you're right.
students, San Jose State University, or the CSU, who are the license holders of this station.
You could find it
Any
right now,
comments
you
or
know.
questions
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
direct
you're right.
to KSJS
Fine,
at
671.
1 Washington Square, San Jose, California, 95192-0098.
Guess no Lewis today either.
Martinez.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
You're tuned into Sports Weekly on 90.5 FM KSJS.
We'll start off with the Spartan football.
Yeah.
Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
Bringing you the latest news in Bay Area and San Jose State sports. This is Sports Weekly.
Good afternoon, San Jose. What is going on? Welcome to another episode of Sports Weekly every Thursday evening, 5 to 6 p.m. only here on 90.5 KSJS San Jose. I'm your host, Dale Watkins, with my guest, Chad Oakland Jolin. No one better to do this show with. How you feeling, Chad?
Oh, I'm feeling good. San Jose State football finally got one in the win column.
Oh,
So, there's not a whole lot to be sad about. And, of course, Dodgers losing, always nice as well. There's a lot to be happy about here in the Bay right now.
absolutely. And that's how we're going to kick off this show. We got a lot to get to, but we'll start locally here with San Jose State Sports. The football team, they got off the schneid and are now in the win column. As Chad said, they rode the arm of quarterback Josh Love. San Jose State hung a half-century spot on the visiting Rebels of UNLV, rolling to a 50-37 victory in front of a joyful and jubilant crowd at SFQ Stadium. And with the win, UTEP of Texas is now the only winless football team in Division I. Chad, that was a tremendous ball game and one the Spartans needed to win. They've had some moral victories here and there, but just your initial thoughts on the game itself in this 50-37 win.
I mean, looking at the game before the game, people were asking me how I thought it was going to turn out. And I kept saying a shootout because you look at UNLV, neither team, with UNLV and San Jose State, neither team could defend the other team's strength. San Jose State was good at throwing the ball. UNLV struggled against the pass. UNLV can run the ball really well, and San Jose State struggles to stop the run. So I thought it was going to be one of those games, not to mention UNLV had given up 50, 59, and 41 in their previous 3 games. So they give up a lot of points, the UNLV Rebels. So it was good for San Jose State to get a win, and it was the first win in about 330 days for the Spartans. So definitely a big win for them. Definitely a big win for head coach Brent Brennan. And it was just really, it was a team effort. They had 2 big interceptions at the end of the game. San Jose State, they played better in the third quarter, and that was really the end of that. And, there was really one guy from UNLV, but I don't know if you caught this in the box score. Tyleek Collins. Did you catch that, man? As he ended up with 9 receptions for 170 yards and 4 touchdowns.
He was truly everywhere. He was truly the bright spot in this UNLV offense, especially with their starting quarterback Armani Rogers out, and for them having to really rely on the receiving core. And Tylee Collins, he was everywhere. He was tremendous, just electrifying, and there was no way for these Spartans DBs to guard him. And it was
He was all over the place. Max Gillum played a good game, but he went 28 of 50. He made some really bad throws. He had 3 picks. I mean, one of them not his fault, popped up in the air and got picked. But, I mean, Josh Love played a pretty much perfect game. The one interception he had is he went 25 of 36 for 335 with 4 touchdowns. The one interception he had, I forget the receiver, but it hit a receiver right in the hands. It hit him right in the hands, and the receiver couldn't hold on to it, popped up off his shoulder, and got picked by a DB.
I believe that was Trey Hartley that he was targeting.
Yeah, it was one of them. But, yeah, it was... You can't blame him for that. There's absolutely nothing else he could have done. So it was just a good game. Dakari Monroe, also with the pick 6 in the fourth quarter. San Jose State's defense really took over late in the game, and although they scored 37, San Jose State, they didn't give up a lot of big drives, which let them be rested near the end of the game. And I'm not saying it's good, but if you're going to ask, would you rather have a 14-play, 80-yard drive or a 1-play, 75-yard drive? You're probably going to pick the 1 play to get your offense back on the field. And San Jose State was able to really limit the time they were on the field. The time of possession, they've been getting out-possessed by a lot, by usually 5, 6, 7 minutes. They only got out-possessed. They got out-possessed by under a minute in this game. So San Jose State really doing a good job. And, looking forward this weekend to another game, hopefully San Jose State can keep it in the win column.
That's right. I think this was just a true team effort all the way around in putting together 60 minutes of good football, and it resulted in the win. 50 to 37 was the final. Of course, giving up 37 points to a team like UNLV who doesn't really pass the ball well. Of course, they were without their starting quarterback. You don't want to have to get into shootouts with teams to wrestle out wins, but. Nonetheless, Josh Love, I think, played his most complete game of the season, and of course, getting your defense off the field and getting the football into the hands of your playmakers, i.e., Josh Love, Trey Walker, Trey Hartley. Josh Love had a bullet of a pass and over the middle, and that went for 60+ yards near the before halftime, and that. I think was the stamp of how the rest of that ball game was going to go.
You got to show some love, too, to Bryce Crawford. 3 for 3 on field goals, 5 for 6 on extra points. The man hit a 50-yard field goal. It was 50 yards.
You don't see that in college too often.
Yeah, you don't. You really don't. You don't see a coach that's willing to really put that trust in a kicker. But when you're at that zone, the 35-ish yard line, you don't want to punt. So they only get 15 yards if you do your job as a punter. So, yeah, I mean, they gave him a chance, let him kick it. And it was funny because he was actually a couple yards closer. Usually they go 7 yards back, but he was a few yards closer when he kicked it. And it looked really funny to see because they looked too close. Like the line looked too close to the kicker.
Right.
They kicked it, but it was a good snap, good hold. Kick went up all the way through.
And he still had, plenty of distance on that as well.
Yeah.
I think he could have backed up 5+ more yards to still nail him. And, I definitely think Bryce Crawford definitely has a shot to play on Sundays as the star kicker for the Spartans had a terrific day as well. But San Jose State, they look ahead to Wyoming next week as they travel up north to the northern United States, and that should be a good game. I mean, Wyoming, kind of middle of the pack in the Mountain West. I think this is another winnable game for the Spartans, and they are riding Josh Love's hot hand. They're keeping this momentum. And one more thing on this game, UNLV and San Jose State, I think it was tremendous composure by the Spartans throughout the game to weather the storm, to respond to each and every UNLV score. It was a lot of back and forth. When the Spartans, they get scored on, they have the tendency to allow 10 straight points, 14, 21 straight points. And they answered the call and responded to each UNLV score and went on their run. Once it was 47-28 after that Dakari Monroe pick six, which I think was the momentum changer of the whole ball game. I think that sealed the deal and sealed the fate for the Spartans' first win. So let's move on now to Spartans women's soccer. They defeated Fresno State in the first round of the Mountain West tournaments, which San Jose State is actually hosting this year over at Spartan Municipal Stadium, just across the way from SFQ Stadium. 2-1 was the final in that one, and they played with a lot of confidence, played with a lot of unselfishness. I was at that game, and it was tremendous teamwork, and I think they can go all the way. They take on Boise State tonight at Spartan Soccer Field once again. The games go on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and women's soccer continuing to be one of the powerhouse sports here at San Jose State, and just got to give credit where it's due. Credit to all the Spartans defenders. They play tremendous defense, and the goalie as well. And in the 13th minute, it was Kristen Amarikwa, I hope I'm saying that right, that was assisted by Hannah Matthews, and Jamil Becerra in the 22nd minute, and she was also assisted by Hannah Matthews. So Hannah Matthews had a terrific game, assisted on both Spartan goals, and it was truly a night to remember. I definitely got to see the passion on the faces of the Spartans as they move on in the Mountain West tournament. They face Boise State tonight at 7.
And Boise State outscoring opponents 2-1 this year. They went 13-4-2, 7-2-2 in conference. So, San Jose State's definitely got a tough task ahead of them. Is their games earlier this season. Looks like they had a 0-0 tie in double overtime. That was really the only game that these two teams played against each other this season. So, you played a double overtime. That goes, 120 minutes, I think?
That's right.
Yeah, 120 minutes. So, these two teams know each other. Not to mention that game was on the 21st of October, so about 10 days ago. So these teams definitely familiar with each other. Should be a good game tonight. And it'll be out at
I've never had fried chicken in my life.
Spartan Soccer Field. Is it Spartan Soccer Field or is it at SFQ?
It's at Spartan Soccer Field.
It's
So it's right across the way. Yeah,
corner, what's that, 10th and Alma?
10th and Alma.
10th and Alma, right there.
We are all too familiar with that address, as
Oh, yeah,
Chad and I called the football games.
And between hockey, which plays there, baseball, which plays there, and football, which plays there, I've spent quite a bit of time down there.
That's right. South Campus is the epicenter of San Jose State sports. So Spartans looking to get it done tonight at Spartan Soccer Stadium. Let's transition now to a little bit of baseball. It's been a while since this happened, but the Red Sox won the World Series with a 4-1 series win over the Dodgers on, I believe, Saturday night, and 5-1 was the final in that one. Boston overwhelms the NL champion LA Dodgers by a final of 5-1 in Game 5 in the City of Angels to secure their first title since 2013, their 4th championship in this century, and 9th overall in franchise history. The Red Sox made the once invincible Clayton Kershaw their personal punching bag, blasting 3 homers off the lefty, good for 4 runs. David Price on the hill for Boston, on the other side, pitched a stellar performance, probably his best of the season. 7 strong innings, allowing only 1 run, at one time retiring 14 straight Dodgers. He then passed the torch on down to his scorching hot bullpen, who struck out the side in the 8th and 9th innings, as dejected Dodger fans saw the visiting team celebrate a championship on their field for the 2nd consecutive year. Of course, the Astros won it all last year. Just a great game all around, and Chad, going back to this game, the Red Sox clearly were the best team in baseball. 108 wins, like I said, a loaded bullpen, and just played team baseball throughout the season. And this was truly a sight to see. And of course, Mookie Betts, the AL MVP leading candidate, he was awesome from start to finish too.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Red Sox, you hit the nail on the head. They're just better than everybody else. I don't think you can get much more simple than that, as they took the A's, who had 100 or just around 100, they took the Red Sox The Red Sox took the Yankees, who had 100 wins, beat them in, 4 games, I believe it was?
I think the Yankees took one game from.
Yeah, those are 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so beat them in 4, and one of those games, Boston won 16-1.
Sheesh.
Then they went to the championship series and took Houston, another 101 team, in 5. Then they went to the World Series, took it in 5. I mean, they spent not a lot of time on this postseason. 14 games to dismember 3 formidable opponents. Boston's just better. They're just better than everybody else. There's not a whole lot you can do. I feel bad for the Dodgers. Being there twice in a row, not winning at either time has to be rough, but at the same time I don't. Because the Dodgers are still trying to fight this notion that you need pitching to win, because the Dodgers had one starting pitcher. I mean, they had Clayton Kershaw, and their other starting pitchers were serviceable, but you look across and you got Chris Sale, Porcello, David Price. You have all these really good pitchers. Starting pitching is what wins in the playoffs. Everybody knows that. For some reason, at the deadline, the Dodgers still go after Dozier. They still go after Manny Machado. They don't go after, last year they didn't go after Justin Verlander, and then Justin Verlander literally ended up beating them in the World Series. So I thought maybe they'd learn from that and go after an arm, but they didn't, and it came back to bite them again.
They really didn't pull the trigger when it was probably the best time to, at the trade deadline, to get a veteran starting pitcher, a rotational pitcher, whether it can be a closer. They needed to give Clayton Kershaw a little bit of help. Rich Hill didn't really do his job in Game 2, but nonetheless, the Red Sox celebrated with their World Series parade on Tuesday, and kudos goes out to the 9-time franchise world champions. So.
And how about this? Since the Red Sox won the first one in 2004, that's their 4th. The Yankees have 1 in that time span. I like how growing up, at least when I was growing up, everyone said, "Oh, this is a great rivalry," but the Yankees were the only ones that ever won anything. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of flipped. The Yankees haven't won one since, I believe it was 2009, 2008, right there when they played the Phillies. But yeah, good to see the Red Sox having the success. I definitely like it. It'll be interesting to see next year where, everything goes, and, we can talk a little more as baseball. The MVP ballots coming out, all of the different awards getting voted on very quickly. I mean, I'll give you my quick rundown. For the NL MVP, I'm going Christian Yelich. For the NL Cy Young, I'm going Jacob deGrom. For the AL MVP, that's tough. Mookie Betts, he just had such a good year. I don't think you can not give it to him.
He had a home run in this game off Clayton Kershaw as well. And
AL Cy Young, that's another one that I don't really, no one jumps out, because Jake deGrom, you hear about him, and he's got a sub-2 ERA. So, obviously he should win the Cy Young. He might not because of wins, but he should win it. It looks like the top people who are expected to get it, at least, Blake Snell from Tampa Bay. So he goes 31 games started, 180 innings pitched, sub-2 ERA. Mm-hmm. That's good as well. So he was 1.89, a 21-5 record. So I find it hard to believe that they're not going to give it to him, as he pitched great. You also have Blake Trinan from Oakland, who you're an A's guy, right?
Right.
Yeah. Blake Trinan might be the nastiest pitcher in the league. He throws a 100-mile-an-hour sinker, which is just not fair. And, a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't have a relief pitcher because, they don't start, they don't pitch a lot of innings. And that does hold true somewhat here, because he only pitched 80 innings on the year in 68 games, but he only gave up 7 earned runs in those 68 games. So I don't know how you can really deny him. So yeah, that's what I'm going with. As far as, do you like those picks? Or
I really like those picks. Those are great predictions. Obviously it looks like 2 or 3 men races for just about every award, but it'll be interesting to see a lot of great names out there, and the awards should be announced in the coming weeks for these MVP candidates, Cy Young candidates, and Rookie of the Year. Of course, we go back to Blake Trinan. Obviously, maybe the A's who don't get enough exposure. Of course, on the West Coast, on the East Coast, the games are much later, so they probably don't get to see the A's, the Giants play. But he was truly one of the fastest throwing heat throwers in the American League. So,
right up there with Aaron Hicks, right up there with all those guys who just pound with velocity. The thing with him though is he has movement. A lot of guys rely on, you throw 102, you don't have to have movement. But he throws 100, but his ball sinks, his ball tails, and it's just, it's nasty. The first time I watched him pitch, I almost just started laughing. I was like, what are you guys talking about? How are you going to hit this? But, and something else that's happening here, and it's about to kick off, isn't it? This Thursday night game. I think it's a 5:20 kickoff.
That's right, between
the last battle of the day.
Oh my goodness! And of course, these two teams not separated by the Bay Bridge, not so much anymore. But that's right, Chad. The final battle of the Bay before the Oakland Raiders move to Las Vegas next season. The Raiders standing at 1-6, the 49ers at 1-7. Of course, a lot of fans around the league might be calling this the toilet bowl, the battle for the number one overall pick, the battle for Nick Bosa out of Ohio State, the consensus number one.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that a lot. Bosa Bowl.
That's right, the Bosa Bowl. These are two teams in desperate need of wins, or if they lose this game, they might as well tank the rest of the season to get that number one overall pick, because the last thing you want to be in the National Football League is average. Not good enough to get a high enough pick, but bad enough to make the playoffs. But let's go back to the Raiders' first game, the game last week where they just ran out of gas against the Indianapolis Colts. The Raiders blew a 21-point lead in that one. It was kind of like the Raiders of the first 3 weeks, where they start off strong but just run out of gas, run out of fuel in the tank, can't put a full 60 minutes together. The Colts tight ends became the Raiders' worst nightmare, as 3 different tight ends, all 6'4" and taller, just boxed out, reached over the Raiders secondary, Raiders defensive backs to score touchdowns. And a bounce-back performance from Derek Carr. He had touchdown passes to Seth Roberts and Jared Cook and impressive drives. He rushed for his first ever career touchdown, which I was sort of surprised about. In his 5th season in the NFL, he leaps and extends the ball over the goal line for a 1-yard score, his first ever career rushing TD. And he eludes pressure on one throw and finds Brandon LaFell for LaFell's first ever Raider touchdown, LaFell coming over from Carolina. But I think the turning point in this 38-24 Colts victory was Doug Martin, as he was stepping in for the injured beast mode Marshawn Lynch. He had 72 yards, 13 carries, pretty good game, but a costly fumble late in the fourth quarter by Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate Darius Leonard. I think he will win the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and that surrendered the game essentially, as it stood 31-24. Colts go down to score, make it 38-24, and that would do it. So the Raiders of old striking again. And then
with the Niners, tonight's going to be brutal. CJ Beathard not even starting. It's going to be Nick Mullins, their draft pick, who's going to be starting the game tonight.
Out of Southern Mississippi.
Yeah, Southern Miss. We'll see how it goes. They released Tom Savage today, too, the Niners did. So, the Niners, I'm one where last season when the Niners had one win, I think, 10 weeks into the season, I was one to say just lose the rest of your games, get a top pick, go from there. But instead, they won a few games. They still ended up with a good draft pick, still made a solid choice, in my opinion. You can't go wrong with an interior lineman, as he's actually not an interior lineman, he's a tackle, as McGlinchey's done well this year. But still, you could be sitting there with the cornerback, who I forget his name, from Ohio State that Cleveland drafted. Do you remember?
Denzel Ward.
That's right. Yeah, if you get one of those top picks, you get someone like that, or with the amount of quarterbacks that were in the draft last year, you just trade them for the farm and get 5 players for them. But, no, I kind of want the Niners. I would like to see the Niners just lose. I'm personally one of those, I don't like tanking, but, if you're the Niners, you're already, 1-7. It's not looking like it's going to get much better.
And not a favorable schedule going down the road. And you're right, the season is probably a lost cause, essentially for both of these two teams. I mean, less than 1% chance to make the playoffs at this point. They need, they need
A miracle.
A miracle.
Yeah.
10 miracles to strike all at once for them to make the playoffs. But revisiting that 49ers game against the Cardinals last week, they as well blew a lead of 12 points to fall to 1-7 in an 18-15 final of that one. And just injuries have decimated this 49ers team from the get-go. It feels like bodies are dropping, every single game. Last game they lost Jaquiski Tart, who had a huge interception, and Reuben Foster, the rookie out of Alabama, near the end of the first half. Matt Breida, he was a little gimpy, grimacing, trying to play through an ankle injury, but just couldn't, so he left at halftime. Antoine Exum, Jaquiski Tart's backup, he went down with a concussion. You're starting a safety rookie named Tyvis Powell, who I'm not sure Niner fans even know about. And, of course, it was cemented when Eric Magnuson, the backup center for Weston Richburg, he snapped the ball way over the head of C.J. Beathard on a critical third down that could have gotten them to within field goal range. With 7 seconds left, they could have got a playoff, get to within field goal range, use that timeout, but no, by then it was too late, and they fall to 1-7. Nonetheless, they meet tonight, and the clock has struck 5:25, so I believe the game is underway.
Just kicked off.
Just kicked off. No score yet?
No score yet. I got the update that it kicked off less than a minute ago.
That's right. What's your prediction, real quick, before we go to break for this game?
The Raiders win. The Raiders are more talented. It. Arden Key looks good, and they're a good team. The Raiders are just, I don't understand how they're so bad. They have talent. And I mean, granted, they traded away a lot of it, but they still have talent. And, Raiders fans are all upset. Amari Cooper, I wouldn't have traded him. Khalil Mack, I understand trading. He didn't want to be there. Why would you keep someone who didn't want to be there?
Of course, Khalil Mack was due for over $100 million. So for, I believe, 5 years that he was requesting, he wanted essentially in NBA terms the Supermax deal. It was just interesting that the Dallas Cowboys gave up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper when they wouldn't do the same for Earl Thomas when he was still on the market, star safety out of Seattle. And then you look up and down the line of big names traded near the trade deadline. They go for a third-round pick, fourth-round picks, fifth-round picks, and Amari Cooper stands as the lone traded receiver, traded player in general, to be traded for a first-round pick. So apparently Dallas places that kind of value on Amari Cooper. And just to touch on, his look ahead to Dallas, giving Dak Prescott kind of a number one receiver now that Dez Bryant is no longer not just on the team but out of the league. I think he gives stability to an otherwise shaky receiving core that, if your best receiver is Cole Beasley, I don't think you're going to be winning too many games. Of course, you have Michael Gallup and Rico Gathers. I know that's Skip Bayless's favorite football team. That's how they start off every undisputed segment with Cowboys talk. Anyway, let's take a break. We've hit the bottom of the hour now. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this on Sports Weekly every Thursday, 5 to 6 p.m. right here on 90.5 KSJS. We'll be right back. 305. Yeah.
The views and opinions of the following program are not necessarily those of KSJS.
You can go right back in or play a little bit of that CD for like 30 seconds to give ourselves a little break. Like once that's over.
This one?
Yeah, just hit play on it or pick a song
1
first.
Washington Square, San Jose, California, 95192-0098. Attention, Nick Martinez.
So we can talk about. I know you have to leave in 15 minutes.
Yeah, so let's talk about basketball.
Okay, for sure. We can talk about Klay's historic night, Derrick Rose's historic night, Ty Lue being fired.
That man, I can't believe they fired him.
And the Bucks and Raptors, they played in a battle of unbeaten 6-0. I can talk about that real quick.
I like both those teams.
Okay, for sure.
I think if LeBron went to the Bucks, they would be the best team in the league.
Oh. All right.
Although they lost Jabari Parker.
They did lose Jabari Parker. He's in Chicago now. And,
Chicago.
we can just touch on that. You want to start with Klay or Derek?
Yeah.
Klay? All right, for sure. All right, for sure. And welcome back to Sports Weekly here on 90.5 KSJS. Dale Watkins alongside Chad Oakland, Jolin with you. And we're going to talk a little bit of NBA talk now, Chad. Let's talk about Klay Thompson. Just half of the Splash Brothers, the Warriors' third option, making NBA history once again. He breaks fellow Splash Brothers Steph, his previous three-point record of 13, to drop 14 three-pointers in a 149-124 rout of the Chicago Bulls in the Windy City. And Steph, after the game, he said, obviously records are meant to be broken. I'm just glad it's my teammate and nobody else. He also broke another record, actually tying a record at halftime for most threes made in a half with 10. You might remember Chandler Parsons back in 2014 against Houston. He had 10 three-pointers at the half back when he was still good, relevant in the league. Even though Klay had 2 stitches in the head after a collision with center Damian Jones, which required a headband for the rest of the game, and drew a lot of comparisons with that look to Jackie Moon from the movie Semi-Pro.
Which she actually dressed up as for Halloween. That was hilarious.
That's right. Ton of amazing Halloween costumes yesterday all around the league entering the arenas. But 52 points in 27 minutes, 14 of 24 from beyond the arc. And he was cold as ice, hitting just an absolute dry spell to begin the season. 5 of 36 in the first 7 games of the season for Klay Thompson. And he scored from beyond the arc in a variety of different ways and catch and shoot. He had a couple off the dribble, fading to his left, off a handoff for one. He got fouled for a 4-point play. And have we seen this before? Absolutely, Chad. And with his 60-point performance in 29 minutes against the Pacers, I was actually at that game back in 2016. I remember it vividly. The man was just the Human Torch, taking Steph's nickname from there. And the Warriors, they improved to 7-1 after that game, and they hosted the Pelicans last night and will host the Timberwolves on Friday. But Chad, this is the Warriors' third option. If he can go off for 37.25, 60 points in 29 minutes, and drop 14 three-pointers, NBA history was made. Like, how do you guard everybody on this Warriors team? Is there hope for the rest of the league?
Yeah, you can. I mean, especially now with DeMarcus Cousins. Once he comes back, if he's even a shell of his former self, you can't. That's what the gripe with this team is, and I understand that gripe because you can't guard it. How are you? But it's not a lot different than LeBron James and Chris Bosh running the high pick and roll. How do you stop that when they were both top 5 at their position in the league? In their prime, too. Yeah, in their prime. You have Chris Bosh who can hit shots from anywhere, really. And then you have LeBron James who could beat you to the basket every time or pull up and hit shots. So is it unfair? Yeah, but it's not the first team to do it. So, for the Warriors, and the other thing, too, that a lot of people forget is that they had this team, they drafted them. Steph, Klay, and Draymond are all homegrown. So, you can get mad that they signed KD, but, it's KD, it's KD's choice. He's going to go where he wants to go. And he's gotten better with this team, which is another thing I think you got to remember. But something that people need to realize that not a lot of people do, this is the team that documentaries are going to be made about. 20 years, there's going to be documentaries about the Warriors because they're just rewriting record books. They shoot more threes than anybody. They're better than anybody top to bottom. I mean, they just had the second most points in a half in that game. 92 points.
92. In
the first half. I remember getting the update, because I get updates end of first, end of second, end of third, and end of game. And I remember seeing the end of the second quarter. I'm like, 92? Is that a final? Like, what happened there? And I was perusing here. Team got 107 points in the first half. How about that? If you want a little bit of unnecessary history. But you want to know the other thing that's really funny is that was the Phoenix Suns in 1990. fewest points in the first half? The Clippers in 1999, they got 19 points in the first half. But no, Klay Thompson, it's happened before. It happened in a finals game last year. It happened in a Western Conference finals game against the Thunder a few years ago where he went off for, in Game 6, 45? I want to say 41?
Against the Thunder, right?
Yeah.
It was 40. It was 41 points and I believe 11 3-point makes.
Yeah. So, Klay is just, when he's on, he's on. Klay's an interesting player because I don't think he would really work on a lot of other teams because there's never any pressure on him. Because he doesn't take open shots, and Klay moves without the ball better than just about anybody in the NBA. But if he was the focal point of an offense, and he was the focal point of the defense trying to stop the offense, I don't think it would work. And that's why I think Klay, if he doesn't stay in Golden State this offseason, he's going to go somewhere where there's already a bona fide superstar. He doesn't like being the center of attention.
Yeah, you put him on any team that needs a bona fide shooting guard, a top 3 shooting guard in the league, make him an instant contender, take a lot of pressure off the rest of the team. And going off to the, revisiting that point of homegrown talent of Curry, Klay, and Draymond all being homegrown. Their first championship when they had Harrison Barnes, he was also a draft pick of the Warriors. When Festus Ezeli was on the team, they were starting 5 draft picks at that position. And you're right. I think Klay on another team, I think wouldn't have the kind of success that he's have the same kind of open looks as he's getting with the Warriors, just because you have 3 other options that teams are scrambling to guard everybody, and you think you have Steph Curry locked, bottled up, stopping him on a drive, KD stopping him on a drive, and before you know it, the ball rotates over, finds Klay Thompson, and it goes up, and you just throw up your hands saying, what can you do?
No, the other thing about Klay that no one talks about, he always guards the best player on the other team. He's a great defensive player, and no one mentions that. I'd put him, he's much better at defense than Steph. So he's definitely a more complete player than Steph. KD I'd put above him in terms of complete player, just because KD is probably the best pure scorer in the NBA, and now he's playing defense. But, this team is just so sound. You look at Draymond Green, who's not arguably a top 5 defender, but arguably a top 2 or 3 defender in the NBA.
A perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Yeah, always. And, he's not great on offense. He's really not, but it's fine. Because he gets a lot of assists, he gets a lot of rebounds. The man almost had a quadruple-double last year. He had a triple-double without points, which is absurd.
And also a 5x5 game. I think he's had 2 5x5 games.
Yeah, with what's that, blocks, steals, rebounds, assists.
And points.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So, Draymond, great player, but this Warriors team, you look at worst case scenario from a Warriors perspective, if Houston trades for Jimmy Butler, which that'd be wild. Then they'd be able to run with Golden State, shoot with Golden State. But if you match it up, Steph Curry, better than Chris Paul. Then you have Klay Thompson, James Harden. Give it to James Harden. Jimmy Butler with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's better. Draymond Green with, who's even their 4? Is it
PJ Tucker, I believe.
Yeah, PJ Tucker.
And he's only about 6'5", 6'6", but
so you can wash that out. The 5 is it's Clint and DeMarcus Cousins. So
that's right.
Warriors still win that one. So even if it's really absurd, but if you put this team up against Team USA or the NBA All-Stars minus these 5 players, this team would stand a chance. It would stand a pretty good chance.
There was actually a debate about that of the 2012 Olympic team versus the 1992 Dream Team. And that 2012 team, I believe it was Kobe, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant was on there, Chris Paul, I believe, who else was on there? I think, and then some names to fill out the roster, but those were the main 5, I believe. And going back to Klay, this is not the first time that he's been taken out, before the third quarter expires, by Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr has been known to do this. Of course, we might be giving him flack. Of course, us as fans, we want to see history being broken. We want to see a 60-point, 70-point night, because Steph and Klay are so capable of achieving that mark. But if Steph or Klay goes out there in garbage time when the game's already been decided, they've already broken that record, and they're just piling on points, stuff in the stat sheet, and they go out and slip or like twist an ankle or suffer an injury, then we'll never forgive Steve Kerr for leaving them in garbage time. So that's where us fans can kind of be hypocritical.
Oh yeah, it's a lose-lose for him. He takes him out, it's a problem, leaves him in.
It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but really, folks, if you're a Warriors fan, even if you're not, recognize greatness. This team, I mean, they're going to have the best 4-season stretch of any team in NBA history, probably. They've won 3 of the last 4 titles, looking to three-peat this year. If they do that, it'll be 4 of 5. And, I mean, Kevin Durant, I think, will leave. Klay Thompson, I don't see leaving. But then this team is still going to be good. You're still going to have, I mean, DeMarcus will leave too. That was a rental, definition of a rental.
And Steve Kerr confirmed that with his comments today, saying that DeMarcus, we're just trying to get him a championship. He's only here on a 1-year deal, and then probably send him off, with a ring, after this season.
Yeah, I know, but then you still have Steph, you still have Klay, you still have Draymond. They're going to get somebody in free agency. How hard is it going to be to recruit people to come play with you? You've won 3 titles in a row.
That's right. And
you have a lot of money on the books, too.
And I'm just not sure if they can pay, all 4 of these Warrior players, of course, of the core 4, of course, with, Klay being due for a big extension, and, of course, KD, looking to break out the Brinks truck, so, I mean.
And if KD gets 3 titles in 3 years, 3 finals MVPs, I don't know how he leaves. Where are you going to go? Everything else is going to be a letdown. You might as well stay.
Quick question: do you think he was? Did you think that Steph got robbed of that Finals MVP this Finals?
Yeah, he had 1 bad game. I think Steph deserved that one. But if you look at the numbers, and if you also look at in that game 4, Steph had over 35. I don't remember the exact number he ended with, but a lot of those points came, not garbage time, but under 7-8 minutes to go in the 4th with the team up by 20, which I don't think it's garbage time until you're in the final couple minutes. But a lot of those points came in garbage time, and it's after the voting took place for Game 4. So Steph had a really bad Game 3. He was terrible in Game 3. He almost lost it because of it. So I get that them giving it to KD, but I personally think Steph deserved it.
Right. I think, KD obviously had higher stats, of course, points, rebounds, assists, but just Steph's overall impact on the game, clutch, timely baskets, being the leader of this team, ever since his first All-Star appearance, I think he might have been robbed of his first ever Finals MVP. And let's move on now to another man who had a huge night last night, and deservedly so. Really quick, Derrick Rose of the Minnesota Timberwolves, the former 2011 Finals MVP. Now he went off for 50 in
Finals MVP.
Excuse me. Just regular season MVP. We were talking Finals MVP just now, but that's right. Derrick Rose, deservedly so, dropping a half-century piece in a 128-125 thriller over the Utah Jazz, who Utah Jazz are a top 5 defense in the league in terms of efficiency, and it's just one of those feel good, one of those bittersweet stories that you just love seeing. You saw the tears in his eyes over in the post-game interview on the floor of the Target Center, and you just, I dang near shed a tear myself watching Derrick Rose of old. And of course, we love throwing around, that's vintage D Rose, when he feels as if he never left, that he feels as if he never lost a step. And for everything he's gone through, all the injuries, all the rehab, the blood, sweat, and tears, and just the time away from basketball to nurse these injuries and to come back and put out an absolute show on Halloween for the people, and for his teammates, and to ultimately end with a win. You couldn't write it up any better.
Yeah, no, I feel bad for D Rose for how everything happened. You never want to see injuries kind of rob someone of a career like that. And I still wish Brandon Roy was in the league, and you see guys come out of it, like the Sean Livingston story, where he had probably the most catastrophic injury I've ever seen, and he ended up NBA champion, doing a good job. But really, I don't think the Warriors win these titles without Sean Livingston, because what he offers is just so unique. He can guard 1 through 3, and nobody 1 through 3 can really guard him because he's so tall. But
that turnaround over the shoulder jump shot
Yeah.
over the smaller defender, that's just butter. That's just automatic.
Yeah, and if any 2K fans out there, that move is unfair in NBA 2K. You just back down a point guard and you make that shot all the time. But no, it stinks for D Rose. I really wish he was still on top of his game. I love seeing the little guys that can do that. That's why I'm such a big fan of Steph. And but for D Rose, it's good to see him back where he should be, where he once was. It is vintage D Rose. I'm sorry to say it. He's just not that kind of player anymore. I hope he can keep doing that. That T-Wolves team needs something. Maybe a little D Rose resurrection is what they need.
Right. Unfortunately, Jimmy Butler, wasn't there in the arena. He was sitting out that game for quote unquote rest. But we saw the NBA sphere, NBA world, garner praise, heap praise onto the shoulders of Derrick Rose, from LeBron James to Steph to D Wade. He was just tremendous all game long, and had the game-sealing block in the corner of on Dante Exum to seal that victory, and for his team to toss water on him like that, and to hand him the game ball, and to hear his post-game speech. It was very emotional, and just what a time to be alive. But yeah, let's take a quick commercial break here on 90.5 KSJS. I'm Dale Watkins alongside Chad Oakland Jolin. We'll be right back after this. Hey, do you want the SD card?
No, bring it on Monday.
Monday? I got you. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Chad.
Bro.
5 FM KSJS would like to invite you to tune in every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. for
All right, thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
On Sports Weekly, we're going to immerse you in the sports world, talking about everything from the MLB, NBA, NFL, local sports, and everything in between. So tune into Sports Weekly from 5 to 6 p.m. every Thursday here on 90.5 FM KSJS Ground Zero Radio.
And welcome back to Sports Weekly here on 90.5 KSJS. I'm Dale Watkins. Chad Oakland Jolin, my guest, he had to head off to his 6 p.m. class, so it is just me until the top of the hour. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and stay tuned for Debo with her show, A Vibe Called West, every Thursday, 6 to 10 p.m. here on 90.5 KSJS. We've had a great show thus far. Let's keep it rolling. Let's wrap things up right. Let's talk a little bit about Ty Lue. He's out as the Cavs head coach. After his team's 0-6 start, he was let go by Cavs management, and he is now a free agent. Now, of course, we always harp on Ty Lue for being the assistant coach to LeBron James, and LeBron being the head coach. And we've seen the memes of Allen Iverson stepping over Ty Lue on a crossover when Ty Lue was on the Lakers, and AI on the Sixers, of course. But he's let go, and it remains to be seen, his next head coaching move after this. The 6-0 Bucks and the 6-0 Raptors, two of the last undefeated teams in the NBA, they met on Monday in a battle of unbeatens, and that was won by the home team, the Milwaukee Bucks, as they improved to 7-0. In a 124-109 victory. Of course, the superstars were out for both teams. No Kawhi Leonard for Toronto, no Greek Freak for Milwaukee. Of course, Toronto was also missing OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, but that opened the door for Serge Ibaka of Toronto to drop 30 points, a game high for both teams, and Pascal Siakam with 22. Kyle Lowry, of course, DeMar DeRozan's best friend. DeMar was shipped over to San Antonio in that trade for Kawhi Leonard. He's been sensational. He's the NBA's assist leader as it stands right now, and he had 15 assists in this ball game. And the drive and dish, the drive and kick, he's truly going to feast with this Toronto Raptors bunch, especially when Kawhi Leonard is back, and he is back and playing like his old self. I wouldn't say he's at 100%. Right now, as it stands, I still think he's at 85, 90% health. But, Toronto and Milwaukee, the cream of the crop in the East, and I'm looking forward to having some new blood at the top with the Cleveland Cavaliers at the bottom now. Revisiting the NFL real quick, Ryan Fitzpatrick is taking over starting duties once again for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after Jameis Winston was benched at halftime after throwing 4 interceptions in his game last week. So in that 37-34 loss to the Bengals. But Fitz led a fourth quarter charge where he led an 18-point surge, but that wasn't enough as the final score was 37-34. And this might have been Jameis Winston's last game as a Buccaneer, I think, with his off-the-field baggage, with his tendencies, with his, I would say childish behavior. He's been in the league 4 years now, and he still acts like a rookie and still plays like a rookie. And I wouldn't say he's a bust. I still think he's a pretty good player, but just hasn't had the production, hasn't lived up to the hype as when he was coming out of Florida State. But the Bucs are still in the hunt in the NFC South at 3-4. The door is definitely not closed on that one. And Packers and Rams, that was the last. That was a marquee matchup in Week 8. That was fully encapsulated by Ty Montgomery, deliberately disobeying head coach's Mike McCarthy's commands of taking a knee in the end zone, handing the ball where the Packers could have handed the ball off to Aaron Rodgers for a potential game-winning drive when they were down 29-27. Instead, Ty Montgomery disobeys. He takes the ball out of the end zone and he fumbles the ball on the kickoff return. The Rams recover, and Aaron Rodgers is seen just beside himself, irate on the sideline, and no one would talk to Ty Montgomery in the locker room. And I don't blame any of the Packers, as Ty Montgomery was traded the day after to the Baltimore Ravens, and so that one fumble cost him a job. That one hiccup in his career cost him ultimately, his running back position with the Green Bay Packers. But the Rams, they improved to 8-0 and show no signs of slowing down. They are firing on all cylinders. They're explosive. They can manufacture points in a hurry, and often Jared Goff looking like a proven veteran out there. I think he's definitely in the MVP race with Patrick Mahomes of Kansas City and, of course, his own running back, Todd Gurley. They are, all three of them, having phenomenal seasons, all in their second or third seasons, excuse me. Well, that is all the time we have here on Sports Weekly on 90.5 KSJS. I'm Dale Watkins. Thank you so much to all of our listeners for tuning in for your daily dose of sports talk. Make sure to tune into my personal show, Outside Looking In, every Tuesday morning, 6 to 10 a.m. And stay tuned for my sports podcast during my show, which comes on live at 8:15 a.m. every Tuesday morning. Good 45-minute show, get you up, get you early, and get you on the right track in terms of getting your typical sports knowledge, your sports opinions. I'm filtered, I can't cuss, but filtered sports talk, to say the least. That's all the time we have. Stay tuned for a vibe called West with Debo, every Thursday, 6 to 10 p.m. right here on 8.5 KSJS. She'll be coming in right after me. In the meantime, I'm Dale Watkins signing off for Sports Weekly for Chad Oakland-Jolin. Appreciate everyone tuning in. This is Dale Watkins saying goodbye. We'll see you next week. 90.5 KSJS.